Hey Cloud team, how's it going? By the way, thanks for this wonderful tools, Cloud and also Cloud Code. I am a software developer, so these tools are fantastic. Okay, they're helpful, especially to all of my works related in software development and even in my personal work I'm using these tools. But I've been encountering this performance issue, especially when dealing with you know long chat. Something like it's not real long chat, but something like a chat that deals with codes because it is just quite slow whenever you're doing, let's say, typing here. See this one? When I type, let's say that, it's the you know the responsiveness is kind of slow, and you can feel it if you're the one typing it. And then if you click in this one, there's something like you know slowness, right? But for this one, I want I want to show you the slowness in typing, right? And this is you know it's really frustrated, especially if let's say let's say on this prompt or on this chat, only I only have few prompts here, okay, and then few codes. But there are times that you know I something my chat is quite longer compared to this, and I have a bunch of codes, so the performance there is quite worse compared to this, right? But yep, so because this slowness is I've been encountering this since I think since last year. Basically it is quite long now, and I am a front developer, so I tried to investigate what causes that slowness. So yep, I'm in this chat. I open the DevTool. Let's go to the performance. I'm using Chrome Developer Tool, okay? And the INP, the interaction to next pane, is basically a metric that we can use how responsive the app in every user input. So whenever let's say whenever I press or yeah, there's some input here, it shows the durations, okay? And even let's say clicking, there's a pointer. This is a click event. When we point, and I mean when we click on this text input, the duration is 144 milliseconds, and every key press it took 120 milliseconds, 130 seconds. This is fine, okay? But the problem here is that whenever I chat, something like, or especially if I smash it, okay, the duration is now getting worse, okay? And take note that I am using a developer laptop, so the specification of my laptop is quite fast compared to the average specifications, average devices. Let's say in this one, you can see I'm using MacBook Pro, M1 Pro. Don't think that Google Chrome has an issue with M1 Pro. Not sure with that one, but yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, okay. But yeah, 8 cores, 32 gigs. So this is a good laptop, I think so, for a for a developer. But for average users, it is much less power. It's less powerful than to this. So we can try to do some simulation here. Maybe throttle the CPU on 3x, something like a mid-tier mobile, something like that, right? And let's do some events here, and it's getting worse. Pointer took 384 milliseconds, keyboard 655 1 second, it's worse. Okay, but even without throttling, to be honest, if just like I said, if the chat is getting longer and there's a lot of codes generated by Claude, it is getting worse. This is the reason why I created this video, because you I want to help you guys to fix this, because I've been basically using this Claude, you know. Okay. So just like I said, I tried to investigate the issue, and you know, Claude is using React, and I am also a React developer. So I have RDT here, or React Dev Tool installed, and we can enable this one. So highlight updates when component render. So what happened here is something like whenever there's an event, okay, there's a state update, something like that, it highlights, and it highlights the components that gets rendered, you know. So something like this, okay. So as you can see here, whenever we type here, it gets rendered. This gets rendered. This one, these actions, the tags are not rendered, okay. But this one gets rendered, and this components gets rendered, okay. You can think that even this component gets rendered, okay. We can assume that it is not really expensive, okay, because it's just an icon, an avatar, and then just effects, and then this one component, this action, it's not really expensive. So what causes the delay? So in this chat, you can see this component analyze data, and whenever we target it, there's the codes. Okay, so you know, I investigated one. It uses React syntax highlighter component. Okay, so this component uses a React syntax highlighter. Okay, and based on my investigation, which I can confirm that one later on, we're going to use performance log to, you know, because provider is not working here, right? Because it's production build. But performance tab, we can profile it through this one instead. Okay, but yeah, just like I said, I can confirm that the issue, that delay, is caused by the React syntax highlighter. Obviously, and yes, it is caused by React syntax highlighter. That's because it is quite expensive to re-render. But obviously, you know, we can see here that the main issue is unnecessary render. Okay, so the suggested action item here is to just know why this component gets re-rendered, right? Because even this component is not that expensive, right? Let's say 1 millisecond, but if there are 50 components in this long chat, or in this chat, 50 components, so that's 1 millisecond times 50 components, so that 50 milliseconds, so that's already a long task, right? So it's still unnecessary. But we're, just like I said, the main culprit here is the React syntax highlighter. This one. This is the component that is expensive to run. And I can confirm that. I can basically confirm that in this, another chat. Let me try to disable that first. We go to this obfuscated, because be able that we can, you know, we can analyze, we can better analyze the issue. We need a, you know, small chat. Open the top, the DevTools, and then go to the performance tab, and then try to profile. Okay, so at least here we can see what are the functions, the main chat process, and then the duration. Let's record it. So let's type that stop, and then let's go here. This is the key pressed. Obviously it is fast, right? Because it's basically it's a long it's a short chat short thread, and it only has a few components, so it's way faster compared to, but just like I said, the more components that you have, especially the more syntax highlighter components, it is way it's worse. It's getting worse. Okay, so this is the key press, and you can see here it's 22.89 milliseconds. And then these are the functions that gets executed, and that already includes the processing of React, like rendering of these components, rendering this syntax highlighter, because we know that this components gets rendered. Okay, and then on this key press, which took 22.89 milliseconds, this is the component. See this one? This is the function that took something. It consumes a lot of time, right? And then if going to this L9, or no, on this below of L9, which is this anonymous, let's click this one. See this is a function component, so I tried to analyze this function, and this is a function component, which is the syntax highlighter. So this is the syntax highlighter component. Okay, so this component gets rendered. You can clearly see here, right? So not only on the highlighted plates, but we can confirm that the component gets that syntax highlighter gets invoked. Okay, and then also the OX here. Okay, so let's try to because the Chrome DevTools supports AI, so we can ask anything about this key press stop. So let's let's ask this L9 and also this OX, these functions and these functions, something like, because we can see later that these functions are caused by that syntax highlighter. Okay, and I just want to ask the total duration that those functions consume. So can you total, okay, or can you add the total duration of the function L9? Let's see if we can total. So the total duration of the function L9 is 8.6 milliseconds. Just like I said, this L9 is triggered most likely because of that syntax highlighter. And then the OX also get the total duration of OX, and also this OX. I don't know, it's OX or 0x. Where is it? Get the total duration of 0x. I think it's 0x. Okay, so it cannot. But yeah, OX. That's an OX. Let's see. Total duration of OX. 4.6 milliseconds, so 8.6 milliseconds for the L9, and then for the OX 4.6 milliseconds, so half of the total duration of the key press consumed by this L9 and also these OX functions. And just like I said, these functions are caused by that syntax highlighter. Obviously, there are also reasons that this L9 and OX got executed, not because of the syntax highlighter, but most of them is because of the syntax highlighter. Like this one is the syntax highlighter, right? So L9 gets executed because of that syntax highlighter, and then this, and also this one, but yeah, this you can see this highlight tokenize. These are functions related to syntax highlighter, and most of these functions, just like I said, are related to syntax highlighter. Or if we are not related, but that's the expensive functions, which basically consumes the total durations. Something like the bigger or the huge part for the total durations. Okay. And then I can also confirm that those functions are indeed, you know, executes this component. Okay, I can confirm that one. Let's go to the sources, and then let's go to sources. I have these breakpoints here, right? So basically, these breakpoints are we're basically now digging on the React internals, specifically on the render base. So let's try to enable these breakpoints and click here. So whenever you click, it basically re-renders these components, including the syntax highlighter. Okay, and I can confirm that one. Okay, so first breakpoint is in the L9. Okay, so L9, if you can see in here, this L9 it involves memory state update queue lanes. Okay, and then it accepts this E parameter, which is this one. This is basically fiber. This is the current fiber, right? And then this N is a work in progress. Right, so we can see that this function is part of the begin work. So in render phase, there's a begin work and also complete work. It's basic. This function is called on that begin work code path. Okay, and it processes the fiber. Right, and L9 based on the performance stub, right? After L9, it will execute the anonymous function, which is the anonymous function is the React syntax highlighter, right? If we press again, resume the script execution, breaks on this one. Okay, so it is now running this component, right? So it confirms that the component gets re-rendered. Okay, if we go back to the L9, because it has an access to the current fiber, and the current fiber, let's try to see what element. Okay, so we base the fiber. Some fibers holds a state node, which that state node, it could be a DOM element. Okay, so let's see here. Let's go to maybe to the parent of the component. Let's see. So this one. See this one? So on the E, the E is the current fiber. Okay, and we access the return property. The return property is the parent fiber of this fiber. So this is the current fiber, and then go to the return fiber, which is the parent fiber, and then in that parent fiber, it also has its parent. So the current, and then we navigate or we access the parent of that current fiber, and then we are accessing again the parent of that parent of the current fiber, and that parent, which is basically the ancestor of the current, the state node. Okay, so this state node is basically, it holds, so something like if the fiber is a host element, which is, it's a DOM element. Okay, so the state node will point to the element that is holding, or it basically reference the element on the page. What element is this? So the state node holds that reference. Okay, and it's a current fiber. When I say current fiber, it's basically the fiber that is rendered on the page. So this current fiber, its ancestor, has the state node of this, which point to that component. So see this thing? Where is it? Let's go to the return, another return, and then this data. So it means that the current fiber, okay, where the breakpoint, where we encounter that breakpoint, its ancestor is a div, okay, and that div, or that basically this the ancestor fiber is a div, okay, and that div fiber is this. You can see that header, okay. So the state node is referencing, or it holds that reference to this div element, which the div element is this one. So we can basically confirm that the component, or this current fiber, is basically part of the div ancestor, which the div ancestor is this one. Okay, so we can visualize that the div, or this current fiber, is rendered inside the div on the React structure. Okay, so this one is, like I said, this syntax highlighter is pointing to this component. Okay, so that's one of the, that's the, we are now basically, we already confirmed that this anonymous, this React syntax highlighter component gets rendered, and we can clearly see on the breakpoint, let's say go to this L9, that React syntax highlighter component, its ancestor fiber is pointing to this. Okay, so we have 3 React syntax highlighter component here. Basically, I know that it's React syntax highlighter component because I basically checked that one a while ago, right? That it uses React syntax highlighter component, but I can be wrong, okay? But this is a syntax highlighter component, okay? And in the chat we have 3 syntax highlighter components. So it means that something like in this session, something like whenever there's an update and that gets rendered this syntax highlighter, so that those 3 syntax highlighter will also be rendered. And then, so yeah, just like I said, we basically see here that the syntax highlighter component of this gets re-rendered. Let's resume the script execution, and now it is it breaks on this aux function. Remember the aux function? This one. Okay, so the aux function on this key press duration, I think it took 4 milliseconds, right? Yeah, something like that. So now it gets this aux function. So this aux function is this is also a function that could be a part of either, this is called, yeah, I think this is also called in the beginner, but basically this is part of the React reconciler. Okay, it also accepts the current fiber and then the work in progress fiber. Then this function, you can see this one, this current fiber, and then this current fiber is a tag 14. So tag 14, it's a memo. You can see this is memo. So basically this fiber is a memo component. Okay, it's a memo component and it's a function component. Basically, if most of the time, if it is a function component, the lift fiber will always be either it's a DOM element or a host, something flex, right? So if something like this is a React memo, right? Let's try to check the child of the memo and see something. Let's try to navigate to the child of this memo component, or you can also go to the descendant. Just try to to determine what's the something. Let's try to check that something that the descendant of this memo component until we reach to the fiber that is a DOM element. Okay, because with that we would know um, what are the elements, something the state node, right? A while ago we saw the state node, right? We can confirm that this fiber is basically part of this element, right? So here what we're going to do is to determine the DOM element that this function is also from. So where is it, right? So let's go to the current fiber and then let's go to the child. So the child of that memo component has a tag 0, so this is a function component. What we want is a child that holds state node. And then again we go to the child. So this is, we are now on the descendant. And then now this is the state node. See this thing? So the descendant of that memo component holds a state node, and that state node is this. We can see the highlight when we highlight. So it means that this OX function executes this span, and if we, let's say, if we resume the script execution, I think I am already watching it here. This one. So resume. So now it is processing the next line. So this is the current, right? If we resume, it is now processing the other line. So it means that this OX function, it processes every lines of codes that are part of this React syntax highlighter. So it means that if this component, this syntax highlighter involves 100 lines of codes, this OX function will also be called 100 times, and will basically process, I don't know, because I'm not sure. I never used React syntax highlighter, okay? But my assumption there is that there's some level of complexity whenever this React syntax highlighter component gets rendered, because we can see here that see this thing, it is processing line by line, okay? And that's basically the reason why this syntax highlighter component is kind of expensive. Okay? So the more React syntax highlighter components, the more the syntax highlighter components you have on the chat, the worse is that duration, that INP, that slowness. It will be, it's just it something like get worse, okay? So yeah, okay, so let's try to resume the execution. You can see this thing, it's now right, it's processing. Okay, so just like I said, based on this investigation that we did, okay, we can clearly see the culprit of that, just like I said, that slowness on the chat. Okay, Alright, so let's go back to the chat. So, yep, so in this chat and with this profiling that we do, or the profiling that we did, we can confirm that this syntax highlighter, it concerns because yeah, we can see here that, you know, I mean, based on the duration that we did when we asked the AI, it tried to sum up the total durations. Yeah, it took something like half of the total duration of the key press. It is consumed by that L9 with syntax highlighter component gets invoked, right? And also that OX, which that OX function, it will be executed line by line inside that syntax highlighter component. So if you have three, here we have three syntax highlighter components. It will render this component and then it will execute this line by line. So it's quite expensive. Go here, render this component, and then execute this line by line. Okay. We navigate back to that flame graph. This is the chat where the this is the chat where we're having some issue on the INP, right? So let's go, no, don't need that one. Let's go to performance. Let's try to analyze the performance again. That 168 milliseconds, 104 milliseconds. Let's try to profile this. That is now worse, right? And look, the key press is now taking 103 milliseconds, right? And then because it is 100 milliseconds, because in this chat there's a lot of syntax highlighter components. This one, this, and it's also pretty long, right? Pretty long. And then let's go back there. Let's go do profile again. Try to disable this one. Look, it is quite slow. Yes. Profile this. See that one? Very good. Let's do some profile again, and then this one, long task, right? And then we can ask again, AI, can you sum up the total duration of the L9 function? So I'm asking this one with the context of that key press. Okay, so it will only sum up the total duration of that L9 in this key press duration, which is 140 seconds. So it's 31.4 milliseconds, right? So coming from that 109 milliseconds, it took 31 milliseconds for the L9, which includes the React syntax highlighter component. And then let's go to the OX functions. So the OX function is also called, right, line by line. So let's try to copy this prompt. And then replace it to OX function. milliseconds. So 31.4 milliseconds, that includes the syntax highlighter components. 50.7 milliseconds, that includes that execution of that, you know, line, line by line. I mean, 31.4 milliseconds, it includes the syntax highlighter component, right? That component renders these codes basically line by line, right? So it's something like this. This one, this. So the syntax highlighter component is, this is the component. So that is included on this 31.4 milliseconds. So this component is included to this duration, 31.4 milliseconds. That this OX function will be executed line by line. It took 50.7 milliseconds. Okay, so meaning, what is it, 30 and then 4, right? Forget. But key press is 104 milliseconds. So 104 milliseconds minus, what is it, 50 milliseconds, right? Minus, and then plus 30. So 50 milliseconds is the L9, no, 50 milliseconds is the OX function, which it involves that line by line execution, and then 30 milliseconds is the syntax highlighter. So if we're going to deduct this, I mean let's say 50 plus 30, obviously it's 80 milliseconds. So in 104 milliseconds, 80 milliseconds there involves that syntax highlighter components and also that line by line codes, right? Coming from the OX function. Meaning, if we can fix that, if we can fix that unnecessary rendering, especially unnecessary rendering on this syntax highlighter, something like whenever we type here, this component will never re-render, so it will not re-render anymore, then we can clearly see a reduction on the total duration of the key press, right? Because something like 104 milliseconds minus 80, so that only 24 milliseconds, right? So yeah, that's basically my suggestion. Just try to make sure to avoid re-rendering this component. Maybe obviously there's a lot of components that gets rendered here, right? But if I'm going to fix or improve the performance of this chat, I'm going to start in this syntax highlighter component, making sure that these components will not be rendered, because me personally, I'm not going to expect that this component will render, right, whenever we type, because there's no relationship. We're not editing this component, this syntax highlighter component, whenever we edit or whenever we type in this text input, right? So it is quite unnecessary render. So just try to, so just like I said, if I'm going to start improving the performance on this chat, I'll basically start on this syntax highlighter component and making sure that this component will not be rendered whenever there's an event that is not related to the components, like the text input, something like the key press event, right, on the text input. Just maybe the context provider, most likely this component is or gets rendered by the context provider, but analyzing and trying to to optimize the component, um, where where somebody trying to optimize an app using a production build using this performance tab and the RDP tool is quite limiting. Okay, because yeah, the profiler here, unless this is enabled and the codes are not obfuscated, then we can basically see why this syntax highlighter gets re-rendered, right? But my assumption here is could be the context provider. You can also use the React scan tool. Yep. But yeah, the great thing here is that we know the main culprit of that slowness on this chat UI, and that's the syntax highlighter component, this one. And yeah, that's it. Hopefully that this video helped you guys improve the responsiveness of this chat. You know, just like I said, I always use Claude. It really reached to the point that I am really frustrated. So I created this demo, and I created this video, and hoping that I can help, and hoping that this issue will be fixed in the future. And that's it.